All right, drummer Billy Hart is here to discuss an exciting upcoming live stream concert series at the legendary Village Vanguard. Plus, in a special edition of The Five Spot, Jazziz contributor Ted Panken joins the show to share 5 essential live at the Village Vanguard albums. I'm Brian Zimmerman. This is the Jazziz Last Call. Okay, and before we get into today's episode, as always, just want to let you know about a cool new album on ECM Records. This one is by guitarist Wolfgang Muschspiel. Wolfgang is a guitarist kind of in the Pat Metheny, John Scofield, Kurt Rosenwinkel vein. But this one, he's known for his originals. This one has him doing his first ever covers of Great American Songbook Standards tunes for the ECM label, as well as getting into some bebop rhythm changes type stuff. So if you are looking for a new direction on Wolfgang Muschspiel, or kind of a new take on bebop and standards, this is definitely the album to check out. Learn more at ecmrecords.com. Wanted to also quickly let you know about our new print issue, the summer 2020 issue, which is available right now. It is all about fusion. Got a great cover story on Chick Corea in there. All of the content from this print issue is available as web articles on our website. You will need a digital subscription to read those articles, but fortunately, we're offering a special subscription rate for Jazziz Last Call viewers for just 99 cents per month. For 3 months, you'll get unlimited digital access to those web articles. Plus, we'll enroll you to receive our forthcoming print issue due out in September, which is all about the art of the album, listening to albums, collecting albums, producing albums, album cover art. It's a really cool issue. And like I said, sign up right now. You could read all of this content online. And come September, a complimentary print issue will arrive in your mailbox. All right. Like I said today, my guest is Billy Hart. He is a jazz drummer and educator who has played with some of the most important musicians in jazz history, including Shirley Horn and Wes Montgomery. But he's also played for Otis Redding and Sam and Dave. Most recently, though, he will be leading a quartet at the Village Vanguard this Saturday as the iconic New York Jazz Club launches a brand new web series. So here to talk about it is the legendary Billy Hart. Billy, are you there?
I am here.
All right, Billy, welcome to the show, man. Hey, the first thing we like to do, because this is the Jazziz Last Call, you know, we're going one last round here, is just do a little toast to someone, to something, to some place, to some idea. So, Billy, who are we honoring today?
Well, how about just the Village Vanguard itself?
Very well said. Beautiful. Here is to the Village Vanguard. That's the good stuff. Billy, so glad you can join me. This is a very kind of exciting new chapter for the Village Vanguard. It has been closed since March, when the beginning of this lockdown kicked into effect, and they are this Saturday going to be launching a new live stream concert series. You are the first performer. Who will you be performing with?
You mean the members of my ensemble?
Who are the members of your quartet?
Okay, Ben Street is the bassist, an extraordinary musician, of course, and Ethan Iverson is the pianist, and the incredible Mark Turner is the saxophonist. You know,
that is going to be a beautiful quartet. You have played with this very quartet at the Village Vanguard before, yes?
Yes, we have.
So tell me, what is it like to play at such an iconic venue? Can you describe the acoustics? Can you describe what it's like, from the stage looking outward?
Well, which will be different now, of course, but
that's right.
It's like the sound of many incredible, iconic musicians that have performed there. The sound seems to be in the walls. It's it's, I guess for certain people would be like Carnegie Hall or some master performance space anywhere on the planet, because as a younger man, as a kid, I saw Miles Davis in that club.
Wow. When was that?
Well, around 1964, 65.
Okay.
I saw John Coltrane at that club. I mean, anybody that you can think of, uh, Bill Evans, just anybody,
You were there at those shows. I mean, they, performances by John Coltrane, by Bill Evans, by Miles have become
yeah,
legendary, those
yeah,
live at the Vanguard recordings. And you were there to soak in that sound.
yeah.
Very cool. When was the first time you set foot there as a listener? Do you recall the first time you went to the Vanguard?
Well, the first time I went to the Vanguard, I was there as a performer.
Oh, wow. Straight to the big leagues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was quite something because I was performing opposite Miles Davis.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
When was that? And what ensemble was that?
Somewhere between 1960 and 1964.
And who else was in that group? Was you?
It was a vocalist. Her name was Shirley Horn.
It was Shirley Horn. Okay, right. Deborah was telling me. I think it was 1961. That was your first appearance at the Vanguard. Wow. Very cool. Very cool.
Then again, I played there with many people,
Absolutely, man. How about in terms of, again, those iconic albums that have grown out of those Village Vanguard series? What are some of your top live at the Village Vanguard albums that you find yourself returning to again and again?
Well, of course, the Bill Evans records.
Yeah.
And just over years and years, and many years later, there was a similar revolution or something, would say somebody like Brad Mehldau. And then, of course, there were the Joe Henderson records. And almost anybody that would have played there, by the time we started saying Joe Henderson, that meant I could have been in Paris when that happened.
Yeah.
Or Stockholm or something.
So if they played there, you dug it. I like that, man. Was it as cool of a hang as they make it out to be? I've heard stories of musicians always hanging in the kitchen and stuff. Hanging with Mac. Yeah.
Of course. And then, of course, when it was their turn, the Marcelluses did pretty well there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And of course, still to this day, they have the Thad Jones Mel Lewis Orchestra, although they just called I guess it's just called the Vanguard Orchestra.
Vanguard Orchestra now, yeah. But for so many years, it's Thad Jones Mel Lewis.
Yeah.
And so
innovative terms, in innovative ensembles,
Oh, absolutely. They've been literally on the vanguard of jazz. I mean, really inviting the forward thinkers, the innovators, yourself included. Do you remember any interactions with Max, the original owner?
Oh yeah.
What was he like? What kind of character was he?
Oh, well, he could be pretty stern and pretty strict at certain times. I remember I was in an accident driving to work one time.
Oh no.
And I called him. I said, Max, I've been in an accident. I'll be a little late. And of course, I was a younger guy then, so he sort of thought of me as being up to some shenanigans. He said, okay, if you're not here in 15 minutes, we're going to have problems. So some kind of way I got there in 15. Well, on the other hand, like he would tell you some history, of the club, like even before my time. He said, I remember when Lester Young played here. He said, you heard some music that night. And he made you feel, like he was there. He just those kind of stories in themselves inspired you.
Just to know you were playing, in a place
but a guy that knew the music.
Yeah.
That loved the music as much as we did. He not only owned the club, but he loved the music.
Well, he would be there every night, right? He had his spot in the club and
every night
listening to music. I love it. You really got to see it change if you think about it. You first played there in 1961. You're playing there again in 2020. Do you recall just that jazz club vibe of back in the day, the smokiness? I've heard it was a lot more chit-chattery back in the day. Jazz clubs you'd go to and people would be talking and carrying on. Was that the case or no?
Well, it was, but they came there to hear the music, right? I remember I just thought of another thing. I guess I thought it had been 7 years ago, but then they told me it was 15 years ago when I went back in there
Time flies.
with a saxophone player named Joe Lovato.
Sure.
And had been 17 years before that we had recorded a live album there.
That's right. The Quartet's album. Sure. Yeah. No, very nice. And how about when Lorraine took over? Because Max, I think, sadly passed away in 89, and Lorraine took over. And
Right.
From what I understand, she too was a great defender of jazz. And again, loved the music and appreciated the music, and really kind of made a great platform at the Vanguard. What was it like working under Lorraine?
Well, in her case, it was like being with she was a little older, but it was like being, with your wife or sister or cousin or something.
Yeah.
So you sometimes you didn't always agree with her, and she would let you know if she didn't. But she also, but then the other time she would come down and said, "Don't you want to play here?" And I said, "Yes, I do."
Did you ever play there with Wes? Because you played with Wes and Montgomery brothers.
No, I didn't play with Wes. But who else? I don't know why I can't think of anybody. Now it's been so many people. I guess because I'm playing with younger and younger people now.
Yeah.
For the first time, I played there with Aaron Parks, or Aaron played there for the first time. So many months ago.
Right.
And let's see who else.
Yeah, great piano player.
Yeah, Tom Harrell. I was a Tom Harrell's man for you.
Tom. I go see Tom Harrell when I used to live in New York. I would see him every chance I got, for sure. And you were part of the reason why I wanted to go see that ensemble, for sure. So do you know how it's going to work? Are you going to be on stage at the venue playing at a camera, or?
That's what I understand.
Okay. Hey, these are the times we live in, man.
But I'm sorry. Go on.
No, go ahead.
Well, the club has been a part of so many innovative situations. It sort of almost seems logical that that this would be the first time something like this has happened, and the Vanguard would be at the top, the forefront of something like this that may somehow continue as if a new form of music presentation.
Absolutely. Vanguard, always at the Vanguard. And, early on, Max was one of the first to kind of integrate clubs and get musicians of different races on the stage together. I mean, he opened this club in 1935, been around for 85 years, and here it is entering the digital age. So I think the way it's going to work, is you can pay a $7 cover, which for the Vanguard is nothing, for access to this show. And then there's an encore show on Sunday. And the Vanguard is going to be trying to do these every week. So, I encourage everyone watching this, you definitely want to tune in for this one. And like you said, Billy, this could be the thing, because we don't know how long it's going to be before people are going to be back in clubs. And even once clubs open, Billy, it's a matter of getting musicians to travel, capacity at the clubs is going to be, everybody's going to have to sit 6 feet apart. We just don't know. So this is an important step forward. And that's very cool that you're taking part in this new initiative.
Yeah, I began to think of it also that as much as I love being there in person, some guy called me yesterday and said, "Well, I'm gonna put some ice in my glass at home and click it loudly, so I'll feel like I'm still there."
Yeah, you get that glass clinking sound. And exactly. Very cool. Well, Billy, what's going on with you, man? Aside from obviously rehearsing, how have you been able to rehearse with this group?
Well, first of all, we've recorded numerous times, not only as a group but separately, with different people,
right?
And this band has been together between 10 and 15 years, so I think we have some idea of what we're going to play. So
there you go. You just kick it back up again, no problem.
Well, it might be a little bit of a problem, but I think we'll pull it together.
I think so too, man. There's that Vanguard magic too. I'm sure as you're playing, the Vanguard gives you a little bit of oomph.
And we expect people that are familiar with us also.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm sure people will be tuning in from all over the world, just like people literally flock to the Vanguard. I'm sure you've had fans from every corner of the world come up to you at the Vanguard. We flew in from Tokyo. We flew in from Germany. You know, it is a jazz mecca and people come from all over.
They certainly do.
We can absolutely expect the same.
And memories. I mean, they'll come and say, well, I took your photograph a year ago when I was here from Japan.
Wow.
Signed,
Wow. Well, we can wrap with that, Billy. What about a memory that sticks out to you from playing at the Vanguard? Something vivid, you know, an anecdote, funny story, just a kind of snapshot we can end on here.
Well, I'm trying to, it's so many of them.
Yeah.
I remember, for some reason, I can't remember anything current, but I remember one of those first weeks that I played opposite Miles Davis. And I walked in the back, and there were 4 musicians standing there. There was Freddie Hubbard, Joe Henderson, and Herbie Hancock. And it was obvious that they hadn't met each other yet. All the great music they ended up making together. And I remember walking up to Herbie and introducing myself and telling him that I had heard maybe the first record he had recorded in New York when he was with Donald Byrd.
Oh, yeah.
And then and I remember Freddie being his brash self, because Miles came up to me and he said, because I'm from Washington, D.C.
That's right.
And he knew boxing camps and places, because he liked to.
He was a boxer. He was into boxing. Yeah.
So he said, man, do you know this gym? And I said, no, I'm not that familiar with it. He said, oh. So when he walked away, Freddie looked over at me and said, man, punch that cat, man.
Just give him one of stuff. That is too funny, man. Well, and of course, they would go on to, you know, work together in so many memorable ways. So you really stumbled onto the start of something there. And
that's before Herbie even joined. You know, Herbie obviously Miles had no idea who Herbie was at that point.
Wow. That's wild. Yeah, for you, man, that would have been like a Mount Rushmore of jazz right there. That Miles, Freddie, Herbie, and Billy Hart. Someone had a photo of that. Beautiful thing, man. Billy Hart, it has been so nice talking to you. I will certainly be tuning in this Saturday for your set at the Village Vanguard as we enter this new phase of the Vanguard and of jazz.
Don't forget to click your glass.
I will. Hey, man, you don't have to tell me. I got my glass ready to go. Make those clinking noises. And Billy, this has been an absolute pleasure. Again, the concert is Saturday night, 7 p.m. A $7 cover, right? 7 p.m. Make sure we get the details right. This is a $7 cover, which for the Village Vanguard, worth every single penny, and an encore performance on Sunday. So we'll have more information on our site. But Billy, I thank you so much for doing this. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. And like I said, really looking forward to your performance. I'll see you backstage. I'm going to sign off with everybody watching here.
Okay. See you, everybody. See you.
Cheers to you, sir. That's right. Bye, Billy.
Bye.
Wow. Thank you so much to Billy Hart for talking with us today about an exciting new chapter for the Village Vanguard. You can tune in to see his band on the Village Vanguard website, 7 p.m. and it's a $7 cover charge. And it's going to be an amazing concert. If you've never heard Billy, he's a phenomenal drummer, just lifts, energizes, animates everybody he plays with. We are going to be talking next to Ted Panken, a Jazziz contributor, about some live, essential live at the Village Vanguard recordings. But first, I just want to let you know about another company that I think you'll be interested in. This would be Blue Sound, an award-winning wireless high-res sound system that lets you play music in any and every room throughout your home. You just choose music from your favorite streaming service or from a music library connected to your home network. You control where, at what volume, and when the music plays with a free Blue OS app for your smartphone, tablet, or desktop computer. And that's it. Getting the kind of crisp, audiophile grade sound system that every jazz fan deserves has never been easier. You can learn more at bluesound.com or by visiting our website, jazziz.com, where we have put together a Blue Sound buyer's guide. All right, like I said, my next guest is a longtime Jazziz contributor. His name is Ted Panken, and he's put together a list of the 5 essential live at the Village Vanguard albums that you need to know. Ted, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So before we get into the 5 essential live at the Village Vanguard recordings that you're going to share with us, I want to know a little bit about your personal history with the club. Do you remember the first time you set foot there? You're a longtime New Yorker.
I do. I'm a lifelong New Yorker.
That's right.
I grew up in Greenwich Village, not that far from the Vanguard. And when I was 16, a friend of my family took me there. I'm not sure what the circumstances were, and I don't remember much about it, but I do remember that I'm pretty sure it was the Elvin Jones trio. Maybe it was a quartet. And it was Elvin, Joe Farrell on saxophone, and Jimmy Garrison on bass. And
Nice.
My main memory of it is Jimmy Garrison and just Elvin Jones's charisma and the whole atmosphere of the club, which was very much, what Greenwich Village was about to me as a kid growing up in those turbulent times. Felt a real connection to it. And then some years later, after I was in high school at the time, and some years later, after college, I went away, came back to New York, and a high school teacher of mine who worked at the Vanguard as a waiter and on the door, sort of brought me into the family, made me welcome. And for the next 40 years until the pandemic, I've been going, quite a bit. I've gone quite often to the Vanguard. I feel very at home there.
It is a second home to a lot of jazz writers, and I've heard it described, yes, as a portal to another world, that red awning, the staircase that descends in that wedge-shaped room. So, yeah, it is truly iconic, and it is almost unfathomable that it has been closed for this long, which is why we're so excited for this live streaming concert series.
I'll just add that the acoustics of the Vanguard are quite exceptional. It's almost an accident of nature. It's set up almost like a cone. So from the stage on outward, the sound kind of radiates out in this triangular cone, and the acoustics are perfect for jazz.
Not a bad seat in the house. That's right. Well, hey, we have asked you to put together 5 essential live at the Village Vanguard recordings. This is in no particular order, but we're going to share each recording and then chat a little bit about each one. So leading things off, Ted, which album have you picked?
Well, I'll preface by saying that you could talk to 100 jazz writers, fans, or musicians, and they'd all come up with a different 5. And so I'm not trying to act like an authority here. My first one, so these are all personal favorites, things that meant something to me, but also albums that are important in the canon, that have affected past, subsequent generations of musicians and have a real stature. The first one for me is Sonny Rollins, Live at the Vanguard. It's on Blue Note. And the original issue, which you're showing on the screen, it's comprised of 2 sessions, but the main session on this is the bassist Wilbur Ware and the drummer Elvin Jones on drums. There was also a session that was issued after the initial LP with the complete takes, which is great. And if you're going to get this record, you might as well get the full thing, that has Pete LaRocca on drums. Pete LaRocca and Sonny Rollins at the time was very fickle with his drummers, and he may have fired Pete LaRocca and brought in Elvin last minute. I don't remember exactly. If I had a little more time to research, but in any event, this at the time, Sonny Rollins was starting to really delve into performing without a chordal instrument, without the piano. And this album, along with things like Way Out West and an album he did that year for Riverside with Paul Chambers and Roy Hay, and some tracks from that, number of things, are classics of the cordless of the tenor saxophone trio genre, and have been studied by subsequent generations of saxophonists. Then Sonny is just in great sardonic form. He's just, it's one of his. It holds up every time.
Absolutely. And just like you're saying, really kind of set the bar for this chordless tenor sax trio or saxophone trio format, inspired countless musicians, including Rudreth Mahantapa, who just released himself a chordless saxophone trio album. So yes, that album certainly reverberates down through time. Okay, that was number one. Number two, Ted, what's the second album on your list?
Well, I'm thinking of these from the perspective of the CD era when we have completism, and I'm thinking of John Coltrane's Week at the Vanguard. It was initially issued on Coltrane's either first or second impulse recording with Greensleeves, Chasing the Train, and can't remember the Song of the Underground Railroad, maybe. But then just tons of material from these sessions has come out. Chasing the Train was a gold standard stretched out saxophone solo that inspired and intimidated generations of tenor saxophonists. But during this particular time at the Vanguard, Coltrane was also recording some larger scale music arranged by Cal Massey and brought Eric Dolphy in. And a lot of that material, and some of that material would be subsequently issued by Impulse, but it's all out on a wonderful box set that came out on Impulse maybe 20 years ago. With John Coltrane, because his career development, his artistic development was so compressed, like this warp speed development during the last 10 years of his life, from when he was with Thelonious Monk in 1957 until his death. You can follow his progress in these increments over several months at a time. And this is a major stepping stone and kind of inflection point. If you look at it historically, 60 years later, it's unbelievable that it's 59 years later, that to think of this music being new at the time, and to think of how dynamic and vivid it remains when you hear it the first time. Sometimes from my perspective now, I wish I could get back to that fresh state and of hearing some of these things for the first time.
Right. Well, you mentioned the acoustics of the room, and yes, to hear John Coltrane, that sheets of sound style in this room, to be there live must have been a thing to behold. Yeah, an excellent album. Okay, Ted, we will move right on down the list now to number three. What's in the number three spot?
Well, for number three, I chose the Bill Evans Vanguard sessions, which have been issued in their entirety about 20 years ago by Fantasy, but came out as, I think, 3 different LPs. And these are very important in the development of the language of the piano trio, Bill Evans, Scott LaFaro, and Paul Motion, who might have recorded more at the Vanguard than any other single artist. Yeah, you've got Sunday at the Vanguard, right? Okay, and I'm not remembering what the original album titles were, for which I'm sure I'll be corrected by your hundreds and thousands of listeners. But,
right.
but one thing that's ironic about this is that some of the sets were recorded in front of very small audiences. I mean, we think of the Vanguard as, an international tourist attraction and a great brand name, and it was then, and it did attract large numbers of people then. But during that week, I remember Paul Motion saying there might have been 8, 10, 12 people at certain sets, and hearing this very unique interactive approach to the piano trio is kind of an equilateral triangle with everybody feeding one another kind of in real time, along with Bill Evans' amazing harmonic concept and beautiful sense of melody. And generations of pianists have been influenced by that record. For me, it's not so much a personal favorite, although I dig it a lot, but I think it's, you can't really talk about live recordings at the Vanguard without talking about the Bill Evans trio recordings at the Vanguard.
Very much so. And you mentioned Paul Motion, the drummer in that ensemble, who I believe was a Lorraine Gordon favorite.
That's safe to say. I
think.
Yeah. Deborah will confirm that, I'm sure.
That's right. Okay, Ted. And number 4 on the list would be which album?
We have Cannonball Adderley Sextet in New York with Yusef Lateef in the tenor chair, Joe Zawinul, Sam Jones, Louis Hayes, I guess. I don't have the album in front of me.
Well, let's see if we can pull it up. There it is. I get the right one this time?
Yeah, you did. You did get the right one. You got the right one last time. There's no
okay
one anymore. This is 2020. I mean, it's just nice to have images of albums and not single tracks on Spotify. But
that's right.
And this is a wonderful album. But the reason I picked it for me is that Cannonball introduces the first tune. I think it might be Jimmy Heath's Gemini. And with a little introduction and in his very urbane voice, I can't repeat the exact words, but the paraphrase is, "Hypnosis is not a state of mind, it's a fact of life." And somehow or other, that was a very meaningful. And my teacher who worked at the Vanguard, who made me part of the family, loved to quote that particular that particular quote. So for my own personal favorites that strike me, I have to pick Cannonball Adderley Sextet in New York. But the album is also killing. I mean, everybody is stretching out, and it's in great form. I apologize for using the word "killing" to describe an album.
Well, hey, that's all right. I imagine that little phrase under your senior high school photo in the yearbook. You know, hipness is.
No, not.
You're
that.
awfully hip, Ted. You are awfully hip.
I was a rabble rouser then, not a hip. Not hip. I was a rabble rouser.
Very cool. Okay, Ted, number 5 in the special edition of the 5 spot. Which album are we looking at?
Number 5 is personally important to me. It's Joe Lovato Quartets, and it's a double CD that Blue Note put out around 1995 of recordings that Joe did at the Vanguard in 1993 and 1994. As you can see on the screen, the 1993 recording was a cordless group with Tom Harrell on the front line with Joe Anthony Cox on bass and Billy Hart on drums. And the latter session, which I attended these sessions, both of them, was just a completely ridiculously swinging rhythm section with Mulgrew Miller, Christian McBride, then 21, 22 years old, and Louis Nash, and it was a more it was more bebop oriented session than Live at the Vanguard, which was more in Joe's Dewey Redmond mode. And I had, at the time, I had been on, I started broadcasting on New York's radio station WKCR in 1985. And Joe had been a guest on a number of my shows from the late 80s. Almost everybody on that recording actually had been on the show because I used it as an interview show. And Joe, I hadn't written much, and Joe asked me to write the liner notes, kind of out of the blue. And I wrote them, and it kind of launched my career, if you can call it that, as a writer. And they weren't edited. I got to write something like a 4,500-word liner note, which I'm sure they wanted to kill me. But,
a small novel there, a novella in the line.
Just a little essay, a bauble, as they say. But the music is great, and it's and Joe is so influential to the last couple of generations of tenor saxophonists. I think that's an important record in his canon. Just parenthetically, he did another record at the Vanguard. He did a couple of records at the Vanguard, not to mention the Paul Motion Trio things at the Vanguard of the 90s. But he did a record called On This Day by his nonette, which is also just a spectacular record and won a Grammy. And I had the good fortune to write the liner notes for that one as well.
Oh, awesome!
So that's on the personal tip.
Very cool. On the personal tip, I mean, Tom Harrell, who was on that recording, was someone I always, as a trumpeter, it was to drop everything and go see Tom Harrell at the Village Vanguard. It was almost a sacred experience, to watch him play up there.
I can still see your embouchure, Brian.
Yeah, the way I kind of cut it into the mustache there.
Yeah, it's a
battle scar. That's right.
That's right.
Ted, because you are so hip, you have prepared. You have a surprise album up your sleeve. We're doing a 5+1.
Baker's half dozen.
That's right. What is our bonus album? An essential live at the Village Vanguard recording.
Well, before I mention it, I'll just mention names and not talk about them. Just a few other things, just to show people that maybe I'm not so hip in your eyes because I'm neglecting these records. Fort Yawa by the Keith Jarrett Quartet, Albert Eiler and Greenwich Village, Red Meldau's trio recordings live at the Vanguard, great jazz trio from the late 70s, Hank Jones, Ron Carter, Tony Williams. Very weird record, but no, not weird, but it's fascinating to watch them adapt to each other.
Unique, yeah.
Unique. The Paul Motion trio and the Paul Motion trio records, several of them, including Motion's Trio +2 and Fred Hirsch's various recordings at the Vanguard.
That's right. Honorable mentions for sure. More than honorable.
But Jeff is showing you before I can tell you the Wynton Marsalis Septet live at the Vanguard. These are from 3 different occasions at the Vanguard in 1989, 1991, and 1993 by Wynton Marsalis's Septet, which marked the first really mature and full and complete representation of his post Notes from the Underground, his post quintet style, and this shows the core in its nascence of what he's been presenting for the last 30 years, the amalgamation of the whole timeline of jazz, is all jazz's modern aesthetic. This crosses 7 CDs in the original issue, and it's not like every track is the greatest track ever, but it's fascinating because they don't really repeat very many tunes. The arrangements are very interesting. Nobody was really doing that at the time. You get to hear Herlin Riley, incorporate tambourine and New Orleans beats into the thing. Wynton is playing a very complete range of trumpet expression. And then the band is Wes Anderson. Oh God, I'm screwing up now. Well, Eric Reed is the pianist on most of this. Ben Wolf comes in later, but before that, it's Reginald Veal. Wes, Victor Goines. Anyway, my apologies to the 7th person. Wycliffe Gordon, of course.
There you go. Can't forget Wycliffe Gordon.
Right. So for me, anyway, this is a very important recording. The Vanguard was a very interesting place. I went to a number of these sessions, and they were all events. The place was packed. They were packed with young people. It was a very happening event at that particular moment in time. So I've gone on a bit long, but thank you for indulging me, Brian.
No, Ted, this was great. Again, we appreciate you coming on for this little celebration of the Village Vanguard. Again, exciting to see them enter a new era with these live streaming concerts. The first one is going to be on Saturday with the Billy Hart Quartet, 7 p.m. with an encore on Sunday. So, I know you'll certainly be watching. I will be too. And Ted, we're going to have you back on the show because this was great, man. You've got stories galore.
Well, so do you at this point, but thank you for having me this time. I appreciate it, Brian.
You are very welcome. I will say so long to you. We're going to close down the bar here at Last Call, but this has been great, Ted. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
So bye-bye. All right, everyone. Thank you to our guest today. Thank you to Ted Panken. Thank you to the legendary Billy Hart for stopping by for this little celebration of the Village Vanguard. I hope to see you at the Village Vanguard live stream this Saturday. Until then, I am Brian Zimmerman. This is the Jazziz Last Call. So long, everyone.